in the Reno-Sparks area. You know, it's just proud to be part of the Horning family, the history here. You know, it is deep-rooted. You know, how far back that Horning name goes. It's rich, and, you know, it's good to have that name here in this area.
Yeah, we're in what we call the history room here at the warehouse. It's my grandkids are like 8th generation Nevadans, so we've been around this area for a long time, and quite a bit of stuff in here means a lot to me and the family. One of the things I enjoy up here, which kind of talks about the car history, is there's Curly's 64 GTO that he owned, and Nick's 65 GTO that drove me to freedom out of Academy. This was the 73 Formula that I bought brand new with Diane when we were first married. This is Curly and I racing cars up in Madras, Oregon. That was a great day. We had fun. He won, Curly won, dang it. And I never got a rematch. This is my dad's desk that he ran his lumber mill from in the 50s and 60s. This is my grandpa. He went to the University of Nevada in 1906 to 1910. It's his sweater and band uniform, his football cleats and his baseball cleats. This is my grandpa on the football team for Nevada, and my grandma's brother. This is my father-in-law, Ole Nielsen. He was a fighter pilot in World War II. He flew the P-38s. He got shot down and spent a couple years in German prison camp, and some of the stories that he had to tell and his experiences are pretty phenomenal. A little photo thing here from Diane when she was Miss Reno. Won't say what year, that might give away her age. But this is some ID tags out of German aircraft that my father-in-law picked up after they blew them up at an airport in North Africa. This is the actual plane that my father-in-law flew on his last mission that's now at the bottom of the Mediterranean. It's his Purple Heart, his combat medal, and his prisoner of war medal. So just a lot of history here in the history room.
I would say family's the most important thing. Like above and beyond everything else, family's the most important thing. Mom and dad definitely taught us that, and it's just important. Those relationships are important.
Russ was going to a boarding school, and I went down to Lodi, which is where the school was, and for some reason I stopped by and saw Russ. He kind of got me, and he says, you know, as a brother, I really would like to go home. I really would like to get out of this school. He actually packed his stuff in my GTO, and we left, and he's always claimed that it was his car to freedom, okay? And I think that's another reason why he liked his GTOs so well.
GTOs have always been in my blood. Well, I think it was the era that we were in. Cars meant freedom, muscle cars, and because my dad had always shown me Pontiacs, I was always interested in Pontiacs, and then both my brothers owned GTOs, and that's just what I fell in love with when I was a kid. Back in the 80s, Hot August Nights had just started. We enjoyed the music, getting out around the cars, and the idea crossed my mind that I should have a car, and there was never any question it was going to be a 65 GTO. I mean, that's what I always wanted, and so we started to hunt back in the 80s for a 65 GTO, and it actually took us a couple of years from the time I decided I wanted one until the time we finally bought the first one. And I was thinking that time it'd probably, run me about $5,000 or something, so the thinking was way off, but it worked out.
I always, told him that, you should have got GTOs back then, because now they cost 10 times more. And back then he couldn't afford any. Now he has 3 or 4, 5 of them, right? So that's kind of funny too, I think.
I was okay with it. I thought we'd have fun with it, but I had no idea what it would eventually entail as time went on.
The collection, I think, is a symbol of freedom that my dad wanted back when he was sent away to school. It helps to keep them feeling young, and just the speed, and I can tell, when my dad's driving it, he's like a kid again. It's just fantastic.
This is our 1965 Burgundy GTO. We found it in Santa Rosa, California, and it was actually my friend Norm that brought back an ad from the San Francisco Chronicle, and we went down to look at it. We'd been looking for a couple of years at that point, and we walked into the showroom, and Diane saw it. She looked at it and she goes, "That's it, that's the one." So she knew right away that's the one that we should get. Had a lot of fun restoring that car. We went through just about everything, had it repainted. The interior we redid 2 or 3 times till I was happy with it. It's won first in its class 2 years back in the 1990s. I got it to the point where I wanted, and that's what brought me to the Trans Am, is I thought, well, I want one I drive on a daily basis, because this one I'd got to the point where I wasn't driving it all the time. And I ran across this one in Hemmings magazine. Here's a car that was equipped exactly like I wanted when I bought my first brand new car, but I couldn't afford the Trans Am because it was a little more expensive. But here's a Brewster green, white interior, 4-speed, air-conditioned, numbers matching car, and I couldn't pass it up. They only made a couple hundred of the Brewster green Trans Ams in '73, and it was only '73 is the only year they made the Brewster green Trans Am. Best I can find out, there was maybe 20 of them made with the white interior.
You know, it was when they got the first vehicle and they started to go to these car shows. You know, my mom would go to the swap meets, which is, you know, my mom loves shopping. She's a shopper, and so these swap meets, you know, she started to collect these things. So at home, you know, this is obviously when I'm young and still in middle school, is these Coca-Cola items started showing up in the house. And before we knew it, the entire downstairs of our house became a Coca-Cola room. Friends thought it was great, interesting. It seemed strange at first, but we understood it all tied into this, the history. And again, when they were kids, when they were growing up. And it was great to see when this warehouse, this Tiger Den became a thing, to really see this Coca-Cola thing come to fruition. And I mean, it feels like you're stepping back in time.
I've always liked the Coca-Cola era when it was brand new, and all the collectibles that we had collected over many years. A lot of that stuff up there he built, so you know, the bar and stuff like that. It's been a great place to hang out for family and movie nights and parties, and we've used it a lot.
It's a 1965 GTO, and they call that teal turquoise. Diane fell in love with it as soon as she saw it.
The convertible is my favorite because I always wanted a convertible. And to me, that kind of was a lady's car. We had seen this car for a couple of years out and about, and it finally came on the market. So we went and checked it out, and there it is. That's my car. We were away at a car show. They always put cars, depending on the model of the car, in different classes. And mine's a convertible, and the car he was in was a hardtop. So that usually they put you in 2 separate classes. Well, this time they put us in the same class. And when it came down to the judging and the voting, his car got first place and mine got second place.
And so I went up and got my trophy, and all the way back to the table I'm thinking, keep your mouth shut, keep your mouth shut.
He comes back after he gets the trophy and says, "Hun, I kicked your ass."
And then after I said it, I don't know why I did that. And it wasn't 5 minutes later, Mr. GTO himself, Jim Wangers, picks her car best of show, the one he'd most like to have in his garage.
I said, "Who kicked whose ass?"
This is our 1973 Florentine Red Formula Firebird. And when I was down buying my very first brand new car, that's what I wanted, was the green 73 grand Trans Am. But it was just a step above price-wise that I could afford at the time. So that car matches Diane and our first brand new car that we bought in 1973. I remember one story. We were down in LA visiting my sister, Diana, and it was time to get a hotel room. So we went to the hotel and it was full. We went to another one, it was full. So I just hit the road and we drove all night. And I'm coming across Washoe Valley and I'm tired of driving and I want to get home. Diane's asleep, so I got the car up. I was probably going about 130 across Washoe Valley. And she woke up and she wasn't too happy. And to this day, she doesn't sleep when I'm driving. I was introduced to a gentleman named Kent that owned that 65 blue car, and he was going to help me find one because he was expert on GTOs, knew what to look for. I didn't. I was a novice, so I was going to have him help me out. And just before I bought the burgundy car, he called me and said, "I'm going to sell my car. Do you want it?" And I said, "Nice car, sure, I'll buy it." So we got the money and went over to his house to pick it up, and the poor guy didn't want to sell it. He changed his mind. So I said, "That's fine, you know. I don't want to take it away from you if you don't want it, just to part with it just yet." So he helped me continue to look for another 65 GTO, and he kept it. Well, meanwhile, I found the burgundy one, and I bought it, and I was happy. I only had an idea to buy one. So all I wanted was one car. So a couple years passed, and he called me and said, "Yeah, I'm getting a divorce. I got to sell it. You want it?" And I said, "Well, give me a couple days to think about it." And so that Sunday, the night before I was supposed to call him back, one of his friends and a client of mine called me, Ken, and he said, "Are you buying that car or what?" And I said, "Well, I have till the end of the night to decide." And he goes, "You're not buying it, I'm bought it. In fact, I already bought it." Well, I'm not going to argue with him, so I said, "Okay." So the blue car stayed with Ken for a few years. Meanwhile, I ended up with the Trans Am, and Diane had found the convertible she'd always wanted, and so we had that car. And then Ken, I ran into a friend of Ken named Jim. He told me Ken's going to sell that car. And I said, "Well, you know, he's always had a lot of parts with that car. I want to go look at those parts." So I made arrangements to go see Ken and look at all the parts, and I looked the car over, and he kind of made me an offer. I said, "Well, okay." So I bought that, and I'm on my way home, and I called Diane, and I said, "Well, we're done." She goes, "Well, did you find some parts?" And I said, "Yeah, lots of them. In fact, some of them are still connected together." And she goes, "Well, what do you mean by that?" "Oh, you bought the car, didn't you?" "Yeah, I did." So that was going to be the first one I bought. It ended up being like the fourth car I bought. It's a Winkle Pontiac car. It was a demonstrator car, originally from Reno. A lot of history in town, and I just couldn't see it being sold to somebody else and taken out of Reno. And I'd kind of liked it and wanted to buy it years ago, so the third time was the charm. We just finished restoring this 1972 Huesel Gold GTO. It's got a 455 with a 4-speed, and they only made 310 of those. Well, during my search for my 65 GTO, my first one, I ran across an ad for a 1972 GTO 455 4-speed car, and I really fell in love with that car, but I wanted a 65, so I didn't buy that car. But it stuck in my mind, and as the years progressed, I kept thinking about that 72 GTO, and I ran across another one at a car show in Pleasanton, California. And I'd figured out by then that they'd only made 310 of them. I mean, I got married in 72, I graduated in 72, it was a good year, and here's a great car. In 2003, I found this one, was advertised, all numbers matching. It got the original engine, transmission, carburetor, rear end. It has the original window sticker. It hung around here for about 7 or 8 years, and finally Diane tells me, "Do something with that car or sell it." And so I tore it apart in 2010, and it was in parts for a long time. Finally got it painted and put back together, and just got it back to the warehouse. I've got a couple more things to do with it, but I'm pretty happy with the way it's turned out. We've done restoration on every part on that car. Every nut and bolt's been cleaned up, restored, and put back on. Yeah, there's only 150 of them have what they call the sports stripe, custom sports stripe on the side of all the GTOs that were built that year, whether they had the 455 or the 400 engine. Well, after all the years I spent on it, it's kind of a relief, but it takes a lot of time to restore a car. There's a lot of parts on a car. I'm very happy with the paint job and the interior. It turned out great. Looks like it did when it was brand new.
Well, we've been doing it for so long that, and he keeps always looking for another car to add to his collection. And we've had people wanting to buy one or two of them in the past, and he just can't see getting rid of them because, there's so much history there. So much went into getting the car in that condition, and it's hard to, it's one of the kids. You don't want to give them away. Who knows? We maybe have these cars forever.
For me, it's something that I want to cherish forever because I know how much it means to them. And I think the coolest part about this hobby with my parents and what they have done is that they've done it together. And I think it's really amazing to see a couple like them be so close. And I think their relationship with each other and their passion for things together is the reason why our family is able to stick and stay around and be so close, is because of their example. And this hobby right here is a very strong reason that that's the case.
It's not how it changed my life, it's just become part of my life. It's like my life would be different without them, but I don't know, it's hard to say specifically how it changed, other than it allowed us to meet a lot of people and do a lot of traveling and just kind of stepped up life. So we had a lot of enjoyable times.